to be granted. 9 months is stated under the Afghan Allies Protection Act of the United States. 9 months ang nasa batas nila. 1 to 2 weeks ang sinabi sa concept note. Tama ba, Secretary Manalo? How far along are these Afghan nationals with their SIV applications? Alam ko, di ba, magpapakita sila ng HR, recommendation ng superior, qualifications. How far along are they? Kasi ang balita, nung dinaan sila sa Qatar at UAE, meron na silang SIV, pre-approved sila. Etong pupunta sa Pilipinas, hindi sila pre-approved. Ibang-iba ang sitwasyon sa UAE at saka sa Qatar. Doon may SIV na sila. Eto, wala pang SIV. Tapos nagre-reklamo nga mismo yung mga American lawyers na ketagal-tagal daw sa Afghan request. Nagpe-pending daw ng higit na 4 na taon. So how far along are these guys in their special immigrant applications? Maybe Ambassador Babes was given an indication kung sana pareho lang ng Qatar at UAE, hindi nakaka-nervyos yan. Pwede na rin. Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, what the U.S. has told us is that these applicants are in the last stages of completing the process. So, presumably that will fall within our 30 to 59-day requirement per stay. We would have to make very clear that that's the case, but that's what they have intimated to us. That since they're in the last stage...
The grant of a visa is like pregnancy. It's either you are or you aren't. I mean, I don't know about the last stages. There simply is no last stage.
But, presumably... we would have to make very clear that whatever process, it has to fall within the 30 to 59-day period we allow for restricted nationals. And it would have to be completed, and they would have to proceed to the United States.
Levity aside, sir, the problem really is, Secretary, that so many time frames are being given. 1 to 2 weeks ang processing daw. Ayon sa kanilang batas, 9 months maximum daw. Ayon naman sa experience ng mga Afghan na nag-a-apply sa Amerika, kabalikat ng kanilang mga abogado, umaabot daw ng 4 years. So gaano katagal yan sa Pilipinas? 4 years maninirahan dito? Yes, but which timeline should we believe? Apakadami Asa 1 to 2 weeks, 30 to 59 days, tapos andon 9 months to 4 years. Alin po?
Ma'am, I think responding to the question based on their concept note that after a trial of a few, they do not process, we can discontinue it on our option.
That's right. That's
and
right.
It is also it also cuts against what they want to do if they will not process those notionally in here quickly because they can't process others because we will limit the number if we agree notionally. So that is the default, but we understand, and I personally am aware of the backlogs of the Homeland Security in the United States. So who can predict what will happen is anybody's guess.
That's correct. Like I said, I have personal experience with the humanitarian parole, and it grants you no status at all for years upon years. Secretary Manalo. Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going to quote now from the concept paper, which the U.S. and on that particular case, it says that the processing for these visa cases, so those applicants, would take 30 to 60 days after which the U.S. government would transport these Afghan nationals to the United States for permanent resettlement or, if found ineligible, to another country. So I'm just quoting from the concept. So this would fall, I mean, assuming we agree to this.
So wala yung 1 to 2 weeks?
Wala.
Kasi yun na na-quote kay Ambassador Romualdez yata or some other DFA official.
It could take, maybe in some cases, earlier than 30 days. But I think what the U.S. means here is tops. It won't exceed 60 days.
Okay, on the magical 60th day, what will occur? Wala pa yung SIV.
Well, the U.S. Would be obligated, as we see it here, to transport these nationals, if ineligible, for example, hindi nakaabot sa 60 days, to another country outside the Philippines. Not the Philippines. They wouldn't stay in the Philippines.
If the application is disapproved, the applicants are then considered refugees and the principle of non-refoulement becomes applicable. We can no longer send them back to Afghanistan. What's plan B?
Thank you, ma'am. That's a point that we have asked the DOJ for an opinion or clarification.
The reverse could also occur if the Philippine government classifies the applicants as not having refugee status, repatriates them to Afghanistan, where their visa applications are not approved. The Philippines will be in breach of its obligations under 1951 Convention, 57 Protocol, and something happens, unfortunately, to these applicants. It later turns out the government misqualified their status and they were, in fact, refugees. We've seen many, many movies about this. This has happened too many times. What happens to the Philippine status then? What happens to our reputational risk, as it were? Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, that is a point that we've also been.
Parang labis-labis na papogi to. Baka madali tayo ng hindi oras.
Yeah, we have also, in a similar vein, looked at the issue you have raised, and in fact, we've again also posed that question to DOJ and get their opinion kung ano kaya yung implication kung mayari yan. But yes, that's also an issue that we are also contending with, the point you raised.
Okay, does DOJ have the courage to answer? Because I'm not sure.
Your Honors, we concur having received the request for legal opinion coming from the DFA, and we are in the process of finalizing our legal opinion. May we just clarify that we agree with the statements made that these Afghan nationals are not refugees because there is a process involved in being recognized as a refugee under the 1951 Convention, the 1957 Protocol, Your Honors.
Yes, thank you. And okay, just points of information. To your best knowledge, Ambassador Babes, Romualdez, Secretary Manalo, considering that the U.S. Embassy in Kabul is no longer operational, who's the chief of mission who will be approving, vetting, and sending over their Afghan employees?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, that's an issue we were going to ask the U.S. If we ever got to talk to them again on who is this COM, since there's no more embassy in Kabul.
But their concept paper mentioned a COM.
But
So surely they know who the guy is.
That's why
and where he stays.
That's why we would ask. Most likely it will be someone in Washington, but we just have to confirm.
Ang magve-vet yung Washington, i-vet niya yung nasa Afghanistan.
I'm just guessing, but
Parang ang gulo, no? It can't be a chief of mission in Washington. It's a mission somewhere.
Are you sure?
Yes, we indicated him.
The
Chief of mission na sakop ang Afghanistan dahil
Yes,
nagsara
yeah,
yung Kabul.
yung
Hindi
may-
Washington yan.
Yung may Afghan desk sa State Department who holds
Pabalik sa State Department, Washington.
No, she will just oversee. Apparently, the one in charge of the Afghan.
Mas magulo naman yata yan sa atin.
Well-
Guaranteed delay yan, State Department.
Hindi pwede natin.
Babalik sa swamp.
We will raise that with them if we see them.
Walang malapit-lapit na chief of mission. Paano yung chief of mission dito sa Pinas, sa Manila?
Si Ambassador dito.
Hindi, kasi nagtatanong ako,
Ah.
dahil, paano naman yung ambassador natin? Si Ambassador Cervantes sa Islamabad, sinong kadil niya? Hindi natin alam kung sino yung counterpart niyang kano. Hindi, nalilito kasi ako kung sino. Di ba, kasi critical dito yung vetting, di ba? Alam na natin yun, yung vetting, di ba? It's going to be so clear. Ang sinasabi natin, walang kakayahan ng Pilipinas mag-vet ng mga Afghan nationals na hindi natin kaano-ano, hindi natin kakilala, hindi natin alam kung saan nanggaling. Pero, kaya ng mga Amerikano. Umaasa lamang tayo sa Amerikano. Pero, yung mga Amerikano, wala namang opisina doon sa Kabul para kalkalin lahat ng records nila na malamang nawala na rin. Ang aasahan natin yung Washington pa rin. Ganun ba yun? Since we're only going to be taking the words of the Americans for granted, we'll take the word of the Americans for the ironclad vetting procedure. Which Americans are we talking to sana dito, no? Since we have no capacity nga to conduct our own screening and background. Yes, Secretary Manalo?
Madam Chair, as you said, and I think the points you have made are very relevant. Kaya we are really, the next step really would be to put together all of our information and really have due diligence among our security agencies, just to be sure that these points are considered if we decide to talk with the U.S. And then the issue of the COM, in fact, that was one point that I raised in our internal discussions. Who exactly is the COM? And in fact, we will have to be clarified this with the U.S. And I think the points you've raised are also relevant. That perhaps if it's in Washington, there might be a problem because of distance. I don't know, but we could certainly raise that point. But they have not yet in their concept paper identified who this would be, who this
Pero
is.
pag chief of mission, di ba? Siyempre nasa abroad yun. Hindi naman Washington yun. They're referring us to some office somewhere. Okay. So, just to round up the loose ends here. Since the Afghan nationals previously worked for the United States government, some of them will be targets of reprisal by anti-U.S. terrorist groups. How do we intend to protect them? We don't want to keep them prisoner. We don't want to confine them to a restricted space and deprive them of freedom of mobility. At the same time, we're fully aware that they could be targets. How do we protect them? Perhaps we can ask the AFP, the PNP, what will be the cost of such protection?
Ma'am, for the part of the PNP, as mandated by law, we are to provide the necessary security assistance and for those who are here in our country or sojourning this country. And for that matter, we have prepared some briefing presentation if Madam Chair will let us permit us to have it shown in.
That's okay. I'm just happy to hear that you have something prepared, and please submit them. We'll peruse them at the right time, given the status of the situation. How much will it cost to provide all this extra protection? Already, the city of Marawi is crying for additional armed forces assistance.
Madam Chair, until this time, we have no cost of the security arrangement that we have planned because of the number of those Afghan nationals who will be coming over.
Yes,
Thank you.
The exploding cost of living is no secret to anyone, and more of our countrymen are experiencing hunger. Repeatedly, it has been said that the U.S. will absorb all costs. While some of these are easily determinable, the reality is that other costs will not be readily apparent from the outset. And the personnel, for example, that you will have to assign for protection, and the DepEd that will have to take care of the children and siblings involved. they will no longer be able to perform their regular functions for our citizens or for the agencies. Will there be compensation for this government, for the government employees, and even private citizens who will be similarly burdened? Ambassador Romualdez, you've been adamant that the Americans will pay for everything.
That is the understanding I have, Madam Chair, because they told us that when we have a formal discussion on all of these matters that we want to take up, they will, of course, look at it and see whether it is in fact really viable for them to be able to, if we present them a cost that this is what it will cost us, and you said that you will take care of everything, this is what we have. So on that basis, we can actually either say yes or no. They just would like to know from us whether we are prepared to sit down and discuss all the issues that were pointed out earlier and also by you, Madam Chair. And I think that by then we will know exactly what the real score is, if this is going to be everything taken care of by the United States, or the other things that we have other concerns, like for instance, you said about the visas and all that. That also entails cost, obviously, or at least personnel that we will have to assign.
Yes, thank you very much. The worry, of course, is this becomes a lingering problem. We have no set timelines, and 4 years would be a very long time. That's the entire high school period. I doubt if DepEd will be able to undertake all that. In any case, just to round things up, what is the status finally of the U.S. request? At which point are we? Is the approval still under negotiations? Has it been recommended for approval by the president? And is the executive branch merely fine-tuning the details, given that apparently there have been several interagency meetings already last year? A meeting, I believe, in April, thereafter June 2, and then June 7, the latest. What, therefore, is the status of the U.S. request for the Afghan nationals to come to the Philippines? Yes, Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, first, we have not entered into any negotiation with the United States on this issue. It's only been through informal contact. In fact,
This is not considered a negotiation, even if a formal concept note was actually provided and the State Department followed up.
not considered, at least as we know it, because it's just an idea of the U.S. and we have within the Philippines gone over it and given our ideas to each other.
Secretary Manalo, I think Ambassador Romualdez has given interviews indicating that it was subject of negotiation because we are considering the request. And I'd like to call on you, Secpoa, who also appears to have a different understanding of the same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, basically, because this has been a subject of consultation with the national government agencies, DepEd being one of
Yes,
them.
that's correct. There are already, as far as this hearing is concerned, 3 meetings of record involving many, many agencies.
Yes, ma'am. Although on the part of DepEd, we were only able to attend one, which was last June 7, wherein we also registered, and we also want to register now and state for the record our vehement objection and opposition to the proposal in its entirety. This has been formalized through, again, as I've said, through our comments submitted to the Anti-Terrorism Council, mainly on legal grounds and on security issues. If I may just quickly summarize.
Yes,
on the
please.
legal grounds, the department, of course, under the stewardship of the Vice President, Secretary of Education, feels that this will delve into an issue of sovereignty. As we all know, in sovereignty, the exercise of rights and functions of a state must be exclusive from intervention from other states or interference. And in this case, this will include the right to determine who can enter the country and who can stay in the Philippines, whether temporarily or permanently. But in the proposal, at least in the notes that were given to us for comment, it seems that the vetting process will be done by the United States of America. And therefore, this is an interference into our exclusive determination as to who can enter our country. And secondly, of course, as I've mentioned during the June 7 meeting, based on the information given to us, the only reason why the U.S. will not be processing these Afghans in U.S. territories is because some internal rule, law, or regulation prohibits them from doing so. And if we may echo what the statement of the chairperson, why would the U.S. expect us to bend our rules if they are not willing to be flexible in theirs? And that is really a concern of the Department of Education under the Vice President. And of course, aside from that, it's really the security concern. As you know, the schools have been witness to armed conflicts locally. The local terrorist groups is really a concern of the department. And with the presence of Afghans here, if the NSC is saying, or NICA is saying that there's low risk in terms of infiltration, we do worry about them being targets because, again, we feel that this might have the risk of further exacerbating an already unstable situation as regards local terrorist groups in some areas in the country. With that, ma'am, I guess we just have to summarize and again state on record our vehement opposition and objection to the proposal in its entirety. And we have again submitted our comments signed by the Vice President to the Secretariat for your perusal.
Thank you very much, Yusek. During the meeting, you were informed that the DepEd would have to educate the families of these Afghan employees of the United States government.
No, ma'am, we did not get to that point.
Why then were you invited?
I think we were invited because DepEd was simply asked to comment by the ATC, the
Not because you were
Anti-Terrorism
going to
Council.
be directly involved.
We haven't gotten to that point. However, during the meeting, we already registered our objection on the proposal. So we didn't really get to the point of where
principle.
DepEd would be participating. Yes.
Yes, without commenting on your direct participation, together curiously with the DOTR and DOST, I was a little bit perplexed by the assemblage.
That is correct, madam.
Thank you very much, Yusek. Anyone else would like to add to the discussion? Since I have no further questions, Commissioner Tansinko, I simply wanted, by way of information, to clarify the chart that you provided, indicating that, in fact, since the declaration, once again, of the Philippines that we were open to Afghan refugees, particularly following the heart-rending videos we all watched upon the departure of the Americans from Kabul, there appears to be a total of 137 Afghan nationals who have arrived in the Philippines from 2021 to 2023. Is that correct? I refer to the chart submitted by our office herewith.
Yes, ma'am. It is correct, ma'am, that the 137 arrivals from August 1, 2021 to June 14, 2023 comprises all visa categories, not only refugees. It includes the Section 13A, married to a Filipina, then 47A2, 47B, 9A category, seaman.
Yes, but in your listing, I refer to refugees because that seems to be the relevant category. That's 47B, refugees. In 2022, you recorded 4, but in your final tally, only 1. Which is the correct number?
The final tally, ma'am, is 4 in 47B.
Okay, so we have 4 Afghan refugees already in the Philippines.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you aware of their whereabouts? Are they working? Are they married? And do they have families in the Philippines?
Yes, ma'am. They are still in the country.
Yes, we'd like any information on them if you don't have it on hand, even for 47A2. Because that seems to be a large number, 42 Afghans under 47A2.
The 47A2, ma'am, on the 2021 year, the 31, this includes the 29 that arrived in September 8 of 2021, but they all departed on December 20 of the same year.
Okay. Okay, there's also a large number of DFA-issued diplomats. 28? Andito pa sila?
We have no data as of now, Madam Senator, but these are all issued by the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you. Tinatanong ko lang kasi kung baka naman, kung 137, kahit papano may community na ng Afghans dito, kaya karapat-dapat lamang na pumunta sila sa Pilipinas. Pero kung aapat lang at hindi pa natin alam kung nasan sila, palagay ko hindi community yon. Wala silang pag-uuwian, wala silang kamag-anak, wala silang kakilala. Yun lang ang tinatanong ko dahil nalilito ako kung bakit ang Pilipinas ang napili sa dinami-dami ng bansa. Samantalang alam natin, napakaraming Afghan sa ibang lugar sa Europa, napakadami sa Pakistan, karami-rami nila sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Asia. Yun lang. Anyone else who would like to add something, maybe from the AFP? Anything else that you'd like to share with the committee, please?
Afternoon, ma'am. As far as the AP is concerned, ma'am, we are aligned with the statement of the Secretary of National Defense on this issue, ma'am. You already took into consideration our
Yes,
national
sir,
security.
Colonel. Which statement of the Secretary?
Everything, ma'am, and on the more specific level, ma'am, for us, for the AP, ma'am, we also joined the manifestations of the NBI, ma'am, on the security level, ma'am. It would be more prudent to limit the movements and engagements of the applicants, if ever this will be granted, to the specific site, ma'am. For the protection of also of both parties, ma'am, the local population, also the applicants, ma'am. And also, ma'am, finally, ma'am,
So I take it to mean that the DepEd and USEC PUA are alone in their vehement objection.
also join their manifestation, ma'am. Also,
You can't join everyone, Colonel.
yes, ma'am.
Pick a side. Attorney Guro, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, we share the same position with DepEd in as much as we welcome the Afghans because they are our brothers and sisters in faith, but with the current discussions ongoing, we are not sure, not really on the protection of our citizen, but for their protection, which might affect also because one factor to be discussed here also, as pointed out by Secretary Teodoro, is the type of accommodations that we have. These are Muslims, so the religious and the cultural